Thank you so much, Rabbi Shapiro, for sitting here with me today to talk about many things that I'm hoping we can explore together. One being Judaism in relation to Zionism and vice versa. What you've termed Israel's armed materialism, and possible a new form of allyship between Palestinians and Orthodox Jews and everything in between those things. But perhaps we can start off with this question, which I know is one you've explored so thoroughly. Is this relationship or lack thereof between Judaism and Zionism? And for you, if I understand correctly, they are not only different, but at odds.
Yeah, it's more than at odds. They work as kind of a team, actually, in the sense that a disease works as a team with its cure. Judaism is the disease and Zionism is the cure. Zionism was designed to create a new type of Jew. The reason they wanted to create a new type of Jew is because the old Zionists back in the day, 1800s, they looked at the Jews as disgusting. They looked at the Jews as weak. They looked at the Jews as cowardly. Unmanly was a word that they used often. They basically absorbed the anti-Semitic tropes of Jews, and they believed it. See, a little history is in order over here. Jews for thousands of years were a religious people, a monastic people. We lived in what they called ghettos, but about 1,000 years ago, the Jews themselves requested to be segregated because we are loyal citizens to the countries we live in, but we have a mission in the world. As a religious people, it's not just merely a religion that you have to believe in God and then you're saved, but rather it's an actual lifestyle and a job description that governs every facet of our lives. And not only are there do's and don'ts, but there's actual a job that we have to do. We study and we pray, and the more scholarship you have of God's Bible and the Torah, then the higher level you are, the closer you are to God, and the deeper your prayers are, the higher you are, and the closer you are to God. And it's a lifetime program, being a Jew. And the reason why it's a lifetime program is because after the lifetime is over, then we stand before God, and however much we accomplished in this world, that's how much we can retire with for billions and billions of years forevermore. That's Judaism in a nutshell. We're here in this world to prepare for the afterlife. And if you ever prepared for a test, you know that you shut the doors and you shut the phone and you just lock everybody out and you say, come back to me in a couple of weeks when the test is over. We're also preparing for a test, but it takes our whole life. So we had our way of living. Imagine, by way of analogy, I don't know, Shaolin monks on a hilltop, but without the martial arts, Instead, there's biblical studies. And that's the way Jews were. Now, not everybody wanted that lifestyle. But Jews were forced to have that lifestyle. There was an old historian, a Cambridge historian, Salo Barron, who had a very good line. He said that the locks on the inside of the ghetto doors were there before the locks on the outside. But there were people that wanted to get out, but they weren't allowed to get out until then came the Enlightenment and the Emancipation, and we had freedom of religion and freedom from religion. And there were Jews that said, whoa, whoopee-doo, now we could assimilate and be like everybody else. And they tried to assimilate, and instead of studying the Torah, they wanted to be artists, and they wanted to be writers, and they wanted to be like everybody else. It didn't work, though. That was the problem. It started in Russia in about 1881. There were pogroms, and the anti-Semitic pogroms, attacks, lethal attacks against Jews, which included the assimilated Jews as well as the religious ones. These guys figured that why would anybody attack us? Why would anybody hate us? We're the same as the Russians. We're the same as the Ukrainians. That led to kind of an identity crisis amongst these assimilated Jews. They didn't want to be Jews because they thought the Jews were disgusting, weak, pathetic, cowardly, unmanly. not part of history, uninterested in anything useful. But the non-Jewish world will not let them be non-Jews. So what do? There are various different answers. Communism was one of the answers. The idea of communism, if you believe in it, is everybody's going to be treated equal, and then the Jews will also be treated equal. One of the ideas was Zionism. And that ended up the dominant one, because at the end of the middle of the 20th century, the Jews in Europe were pretty much wiped out. And because Zionism took place in Palestine to a large extent, they ended up the dominant Jewish movement, because the others were just wiped off the face of the earth. Zionism believed that the Jews need to change, that the reason why people don't like Jews is because the image of the Jew is still of that religious Jew, of the disgusting Jew. In addition, there's something else hateable about Jews. They don't have a country. Nationalism in those days was a very strong movement. Empires were becoming nation states, and the Jews don't have a state. And the Jews aren't a people like other people. Now, we weren't, because we were a religion. But they figured, look, if we could change the Jews into a nationality, we could be like everybody else. That will have two important results. Result number one, people will look at the Jews differently. Now you're normal, because now you have your own land, you have a language, you have a culture. You're not these weirdos. And two, more importantly, it'll change the Jews themselves. Their aspirations will change. Instead of wanting to finish volumes of the Talmud, they'll want to win Olympic gold medals. They'll want to win Eurovision song contests. They'll want to be like everybody else. They'll want a strong army. So the Zionists set out to create a nationality out of the Jews. This was a daunting task, because the Jews had no national characteristics. Because we were not a nationality, we had no common land, language, or culture. There was no common land because for thousands of years the Jews were all over the world, and there was nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's what God wanted, and that's where we were. God is all over the world. We could also be all over the world. We had no language or culture because there were Jews in Ethiopia, there are Jews in Morocco, Yemen, there are Jews in Syria, there are Jews in Germany, Spain, Russia, England. These Jews have nothing cultural in common. They had one thing in common, their religion. That's it. But the Zionists said, no, land, language, culture, we need it for the Jews. We'll make the Jews a flag like all people have. They made a flag. That's what today is the Israeli flag, which existed before Israel did. We'll create a language. So they sat down, a guy, Eliezer ben Yehuda, his name was, to create modern Hebrew. A biblical Hebrew or rabbinic Hebrew is not really a speakable language. There are only a few hundred root words. So he created an actual modern language, modern Hebrew. A national anthem they created. They created a culture. They had various different ideas about what the culture should be. It should be right-wing, left-wing, fascist, socialist. And those differences of opinion led to differences of political parties today in Israel. Long story short, the religious Jews were very much against this. They considered it a form of idol worship. It's an actual denial of Jewish identity, because Jewish identity is only religious. For many, many centuries, the Jews understood the only thing that unites the Jewish people is the fact that God gave the Jews the Torah at Mount Sinai, as the Bible says, and that's the only common denominator that Jews have. The definition of a Jew is somebody enjoined by God to fulfill the Torah. Being a Jew is a job description. The Zionists said, no, that will not do. We will become a nationality. And there was always this, not tension, it was worse than tension. The Zionists wanted to cure the Jews of their aspirations, which were to be meek, mild, humble, priestly. The Bible says the Jews are mamlechas kahanim v'goy kodosh, a priestly people. You will become strongmen, warriors, especially warriors. Jews did not like wars. It was very much against our values. You will become warriors. You will become strongmen. You will stop with this cerebral lifestyle and this studious, pious lifestyle. You will be like the Cossacks. You will be like the Germans. You will be like the Russians. Exactly which country you will be like and what culture? Okay, there are different Zionist opinions about that. And again, that resulted in different Zionist political parties today. And that was Zionism, designed to wipe out Jewish identity, destroy it, and replace it with Zionist identity. Very simple. And that way the Jews would be normalized, and the Jews will be normalized, or will be normal in the eyes of the world. They had educational centers. They created history books that changed Jewish history. That the Jewish aspirations all throughout history was not for a Messiah to come and make a renewal of the world and the world become a spiritual place. No, Jewish aspirations were always for national self-determination. We were always looking to 2,000 years to come back to our land. No, we were looking for a messianic renewal of the world, for an eschatology, for God to come back and end of days. No, that's not what we were looking for, said the Zionists. We were looking for return to our homeland. And the Holy Land, Palestine, Israel, it is never our homeland. A homeland, in English, the word homeland doesn't say much about what a homeland is, but in other languages, including Hebrew, homeland, like in French, la patria, fatherland. There's Mother Russia, it's motherland, it's fatherland. In Hebrew, moledes, the place you were born. And there's a certain, in nationalist philosophy, a certain organic connection between a people and the place where the people were born, where the people were formed. According to Judaism, the Jewish people were created at Mount Sinai in the desert. There was no country. According to Zionism, the Jewish people were created, as Israel's Declaration of Independence says, in Israel. Before Israel, weren't real Jews. Moses never went into Israel. But Israel is where the Jews were created, and Israel is therefore the homeland. For us, it's a holy land. Israel, for the Zionists, it's a homeland. Change all the Jewish concepts. Change everything from spirituality to politics, or from spirituality to physicality, from spirituality to materiality. Keep the names, keep the symbols. Yes, the Holy Land is valuable to us, but not because of the way the Jews think. Jews think it's holy. No, it's what Russia is to the Russians and Germany is to the Germans, Israel is to the Jews. We wanted an eschatology, an end of days, spiritual renewal of the world, said the Zionists. No, we want national self-determination. The Jews are a people only united by our religion, by our God. Jews are brothers because we have one Father, God. No, it's not true. Jews are brothers the same way the Russians are brothers. We are nationals, and that's it. Now, that's why Zionism is opposed to Judaism. And never mind the fact that the Zionists violate the Jewish religion in all sorts of ways. The most blatant is that we're not allowed to have sovereignty over that land until the Messiah comes. But set that aside for now. The very definition of a Jew, according to Zionists, is different than the definition of a Jew according to Judaism. When I say Jew and Benjamin Netanyahu says Jew, it's only homonyms. So if you want to know the definition of Zionism, really, the Zionists won't even tell you what the definition of Zionism is. Every Zionist will tell you that whatever you say, that's not really the definition. Definition is the right for the Jews to do this. No. All Zionisms, instead of talking about the definition of Zionism, it's better to realize that every Zionism presupposes two things. Thing number one, the Jews are a nationality, not just a religion. Thing number two, Israel is the state of that nationality. In the words of Israel's own website, Avigdor Lieberman wrote an article there that says the following, and Danny Ayalon said the same thing. The Zionists say this. Netanyahu wrote this kind of different language, but same idea in one of his books. What Japan is to the Japanese and France is to the French, Israel is to the Jews. Okay. And therefore, by the way, that's why Netanyahu and all of these guys say anti-Zionism has to be anti-Semitism. This is coming from Benjamin Netanyahu. You cannot say I'm against the existence of the United States of America, but I want an American identity. You can't say I'm against the existence of France and say I want a French identity. So too, you can't say I'm against the existence of Israel and want a Jewish identity. Without Israel, it's like French without France. It's like the Japanese without Japan. Now, the whole thing is baloney. because the Jews existed way before Israel did. We exist now independent of Israel. There is no connection between the existence of the Jews, the identity of the Jews, and the state of Israel. Yet, the state of Israel wants to own Jewish identity to the point where Japan is to the Japanese what Israel is to the Jews. That's Zionism. It's the nationalization of Jewish identity. Okay? It's not even Jewish nationalism. It's more than that. A Christian nationalism, let's say, would agree that Christianity is a religion, but it should rule the nation. White nationalism would agree that whites are whites, but they should also be a nation. Zionism doesn't say merely that being Jew is a religion, but this religion should run a country. The Jews are primarily a nationality. They also had a religion. Like the Greeks had a religion, they worshiped Zeus. And I don't know what, the Scandinavians had Odin. The Jews had our God. But the Jews are a nationality like Greeks are a nationality. Okay, that's Zionism. And that's an absolute erasure of Jewish identity. Now, this idea of Zionism, it causes a lot of problems for the Jews and for non-Jews. First thing is that I am a Jew by religion. I'm a citizen of the United States of America. My family's from Poland. We've been there for hundreds of years. Is Israel my country, or is the United States of America my country? Well, Israel has a nation-state law, 2018, that Israel is officially the nation-state of the Jewish people. Remember, Zionism means the Jews are a nationality and Israel is the state of that nationality. But I thought I'm an American and America is my country. This was one of the biggest objections to Zionism from both religious and non-religious Jews. In England, when they had the Balfour Declaration, there was one Jewish member of the cabinet. His name was Edwin Montague. He was against the Balfour Declaration. He was against Zionism. He said, you're going to make Jews strangers, foreigners in their own countries. He says, you want to make a Jewish state, that means that the Jews will be strangers in their own countries. And indeed, Netanyahu comes to America. He did so when he came to speak to Congress about Barack Obama's Iran deal, which he wanted to squelch. And he said, I come here representing not only the people that elected me, but I represent all Jews all over the world. Netanyahu claims to be my prime minister. Naftali Bennett said after Barack Obama insulted Netanyahu, he called him a coward, using a nasty colloquialism, that insulting Netanyahu is insulting all the Jews all over the world. Netanyahu is not only the prime minister of Israel, he's the prime minister of the Jews. Jonathan Pollard, the Israeli spy that was convicted for spying on America, he did his time, he moved back to Israel. He had not long ago said, it was in all of Israel's papers, he would advise Jews to spy on America for Israel. According to Zionism, Israel is my country. When Israel says that Japan is to the Japanese, and France is to the French, what Israel is to the Jews, imagine there's two people in France, a Jewish guy and a non-Jewish guy. France is to the French what Israel is to the Jews. He doesn't mean the Israeli Jews. He means the French Jews too. So France is to the non-Jewish Frenchman what Israel is to the Jewish Frenchman. Zionism, by definition, is anti-Semitic, therefore, because it makes it's a dual loyalty trope. Not only dual loyalty trope, it demands my loyalty. It demands that it claims that it represents me by its own law. Now, mind you, there is not a single country in the world like that. There is no other country in the world that claims to be the state of people that are not its citizens, never were its citizens, don't live there, never did live there. I have a right by international law to change my nationality. If I don't like my president, Joe Biden, I can move to Mexico, and then Mexico is my nation state if they'll have me. But no matter where I run, what country I live in, Benjamin Netanyahu claims to be my prime minister because I was born Jewish. That sounds like a dictatorship, not a democracy to me. You know, they may give people equal rights over there, but if I can't escape from that being my nation state, that doesn't sound like a democracy to me. There is no other country in the world like that. Now, we need to understand this. Israel is different than all other countries in the world. All other countries in the world are the countries of its citizens. Israel is not the country of its citizens by Israeli law. Israel is the country of the Jews. Meaning, if you are an Israeli citizen but you're not Jewish, Israel's not your country. By that I mean, Israeli law says you have no self-determination rights in Israel unless you're Jewish. So if this is the country of the Jews, and the non-Jews are there, yes, they're there with equal civil rights, they are citizens, but Israel's not their country. Israel could never allow non-Jewish people to run the country. It has to be a Jewish majority. Now, more than that, by Israeli law, remember I said that the Jews are a nation and Israel's a state? By Israeli law, there is no such thing as an Israeli nationality. Israel's census, it has various different categories for people. There's religion, and there's nationality and citizenship. Nationality is Jewish. Nationality is Arab. Nationality is Druze. Citizen, Israeli. Israel is the country, not of its citizens. Israel is the country of a nationality. Now, you have to understand how Israel looks at themselves. And if we understand this, we'll understand a lot of things about why Israel behaves in many ways that they do, and why they look at themselves in certain ways, as opposed to the rest of the world looking at them in other ways. There are people who have said that Israel's a racist state because it favors Jews. Okay, is Turkey a racist state because it favors Turks over people who are not Turks? I'm talking about Turkish citizens. Well, obviously not. Countries are there to serve their people. Turkey is there to serve the Turkish citizens. France is there to serve the French citizens, but Israel is to serve the Jewish nation. They look at all the Jews as other countries look at the citizens of those countries. It is the country of the Jews. It was made to be the country of the Jews. Now you're going to tell me, well, okay, but every other country, you can become a citizen of that country regardless of your nationality. Well, you can convert to Judaism, and then you are officially an Israeli national, which is weird because even though Zionism claims that being a Jew is not a religion, it's a nationality, if you go through a religious conversion, not a naturalization process, you go to a rabbi in Belgium, and you go through a religious conversion, maybe anti-Zionist rabbis that don't recognize Israel. If you are a Jew by religion, you are now a Jew by nationality. And by the way, that doesn't apply to all Jews. By Israeli law, even if you're an atheist, obviously, you're a Jew and you're entitled to the law of return. Because it has nothing to do with religion. Although it's kind of contradictory to the fact that if you convert with a religious conversion, now you're Jewish national. However, according to Israeli law, if you're born Jewish and you believe in another religion other than Judaism, you believe Jesus is the Messiah, you believe Muhammad's the prophet, you're not a Jew. You believe in no God, then you are a Jew. You believe God's a Trinity, no Jew. There was a case of a Jew that was born Jewish. His name was Daniel Refusion, Polish guy. He later converted to Christianity. He was no anti-Semite. He helped Jews escape in World War II because of his status. And after World War II, 1948, when Israel was formed, he wanted to move to Israel and become a citizen on the law of return. Israel's Supreme Court ruled, no, he's not Jewish. He's Christian. But wait, if a Jew could be an atheist, why can't a Jew be a Christian? Imagine this brother Daniel, he's a Carmelite monk, if he would say, all right, I don't believe in Jesus anymore. I don't believe in anything anymore. I'm an atheist. Oh, now you're Jewish. Now you can come. I'm a Christian. Oh, you're Christian. You're no good. Okay, fine. I don't believe in Christianity anymore. I'm an atheist. Oh, now you're an atheist. Come to Israel. Now you're Jewish. None of this makes any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is because Israel tried to create something that doesn't exist. They tried to create, out of the Jews, a nationality. Had they wanted to create a new nationality, and there were pseudo kind of Zionists that did want to create a totally new nationality, have nothing to do with the Jews. They were called Canaanim. Never got off the ground. That would be one thing. It was a valid idea. It was also a fiction, but they had nobody to buy into it. Nobody. What they did was they tried to gaslight the Jews and change the Jews and re-educate the Jews to look at themselves differently as a nationality rather than a religion. The problem is the Jews for thousands of years have been very, very solid in their identity that they're a nationality, that they're a religion. They have no national characteristics. And this whole idea that, well, if you're a Jew anywhere, you could come to Israel, what's the definition of a Jew? Israel has never defined what a Jew is. Israel claims to be a Jewish state, the Jewish state. What's a Jew?